€169.15 per megawatt hour. That is what Ireland paid for electricity on Tuesday, the 21st of April, 2026, the highest price in the European Union. Not Italy, not Germany, Ireland. And on that same Tuesday, at that exact same moment, Spain was paying €44.35 per megawatt hour, less than a quarter of what we paid. Same continent, same energy crisis, same war driving up the same gas prices across the same integrated European market. So here's the question sitting at the center of this entire story. Why is Ireland paying nearly 4 times what Spain pays? And what exactly is the mechanism that is about to land on your electricity bill in May or June, whether you are ready for it or not? Because here's what most of the coverage has missed so far. The bill you will receive in the coming weeks does not reflect the current crisis. It reflects a price that was locked in months ago, in December in the gas forward market, when most people were not paying close attention. And that price has not yet appeared on a single Irish household electricity statement. We will get to that number, but first, a broader question. If the European Commission published a formal energy response plan today, with tax cuts, storage plans, and emergency household support, why is Ireland still the most exposed country on the continent? What does the plan actually change? And why did the Commission stop short of the tools it used last time? Before we get into the full picture, quick question. Drop your county or city into the comments and let me know how long you have right now. 12 minutes or the longer version? I am genuinely interested in the geography of the people watching this. It shapes how I think about how these stories land. Drop it below, then let us get back to the numbers. On the 22nd of April, 2026, the European Commission formally published its response to the energy crisis driven by the war involving the United States, Israel, and Iran. The package covered 3 things: recommended cuts to electricity taxes, a coordinated summer refill of gas storage across member states, and targeted energy vouchers for households most at risk of fuel poverty. Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, speaking in Brussels, put the cost of the crisis in precise terms. In the 44 days since the conflict began, the European Union's bill for fossil fuel imports had increased by over €22 billion. Not €22 billion of additional energy, €22 billion for the same molecules at higher prices. And the Commission's response stopped well short of the actions it took in 2022. No gas price cap, no windfall profits tax on energy companies. Both of those were tools deployed when Russia cut gas supplies 4 years ago. EU officials this time said the restrained response reflects an assessment that the shock could last for months, that it is prudent to hold back the most extreme measures for now. One analyst from the Center for European Reform told Reuters that continued closure of the Strait of Hormuz could lead to a worse shock on oil than in 2022, a broadly comparable shock on gas, but a smaller shock on electricity, because European countries have significantly expanded their renewable capacity since then. That last clause is the one that matters most for Ireland, because not all European countries have expanded that renewable capacity at the same rate, and the gap in that expansion is precisely the gap between Ireland's electricity price and Spain's. The plan is non-binding. What Brussels recommends and what Dublin does are 2 entirely different decisions. Ireland entered this moment with a structural weight that most other member states do not carry. To understand what that weight is, you need to understand the mechanism behind the price. The mechanism is slightly more complex than the headlines suggest, so let us walk through it precisely. Ireland generates approximately 41% of its electricity from natural gas. That is the baseline figure from Gas Networks Ireland for 2024. On days when wind is low and demand is high, that share surges, peaking at 83% on individual days in 2024. And under the European Union's marginal pricing system, the rule that governs how electricity is priced across the integrated European market, the most expensive energy source active on the grid in any given hour sets the price for every single megawatt hour sold in that hour. Which means, when Irish gas turbines are running, every household and every business in Ireland pays the gas price. Not just for the electricity generated by gas, for all of it, for the wind power, for every other source on the grid. All of it priced at the marginal rate of the most expensive source active at that moment. This is not a flaw in the system. It is the design. Ireland did not invent it, and Ireland did not choose it. But Ireland is more exposed to it than almost any other member state, because 41% baseline gas dependency, with peaks at 83%, means that when the gas price moves, the Irish electricity price moves with it, fully, immediately, with nothing structural absorbing the impact. And then there is Spain. Spain generated 0.2% of its electricity from gas turbines on Tuesday, the 21st of April. 0.2%. Analysts at the energy think tank Ember say Spain has crossed what they describe as a tipping point, a level of consistent renewable supply where wind and solar now push gas off the system for most hours of the day. The result is that Spain pays €44 per megawatt hour at a moment when Ireland pays 169. Here's what makes this genuinely uncomfortable. In 2024, Ireland's renewable electricity share was approximately 40%, according to the Central Statistics Office, Ireland. Spain's share was in a broadly similar range before it crossed the tipping point. The difference between the two countries' electricity prices is not a geography gap. It is not a weather gap. It is a policy gap. The difference between a country that kept investing in grid infrastructure, in the connections required to absorb and deploy renewable generation, and a country that built the wind turbines but did not finish the job. Ireland is not a country without wind. It is a country that has not yet reached the threshold where wind can push gas off the system. That threshold is the difference between €44 per megawatt hour and 169. Everything we have just covered, the commission plan, the marginal pricing mechanism, the Spain comparison, that is only the surface layer of the story. The real story starts in December 2025 in the gas forward market, and it explains precisely what is heading for Irish households right now, regardless of what happens at the European Council summit in Cyprus tomorrow and the day after. When energy companies buy gas to generate electricity, they do not buy it on the day they need it. They purchase forward, locking in prices for the months ahead. That forward price is ultimately what flows through to the tariff you pay on your bill, not the spot price today, the contracted price from months ago. In December 2025, buying natural gas forward for the next 12 months cost 77 cents per therm. By March 2026, just 3 months later, that price had risen to 147 cents per therm, a 90% increase in 3 months. That increase was locked in before most Irish consumers were focused on Iran. It was locked in before the fuel protests in April. It was locked in before today's commission announcement, and it has not yet appeared on a single Irish household electricity bill. Energy industry sources, quoted this week by the Irish Times, confirmed that household bills are expected to start rising in May or June. One senior figure described the situation as something being monitored on a daily basis. The average Irish household currently pays approximately €1,700 per year for electricity. That is the figure from the Economic and Social Research Institute's report published this month. €1,700 is the baseline. The 90% forward price increase has not yet been applied to it. The mechanism behind the number, not just the number itself, the cause and effect chain that runs from a forward gas market in December to your bill in June, is what has been missing from your feed. You know where the button is. Now, back to what the institutions actually know about this, and when they knew it. The Economic and Social Research Institute report, published in April 2026, found that Ireland had the highest electricity prices in the European Union in 2024, excluding taxes and energy credits. This was up from third highest in 2018. The researchers concluded that Irish energy costs are higher than the European average, and particularly exposed to the international price of natural gas. They also found that deploying more renewables would provide an immediate benefit to Irish consumers because it would reduce exactly that exposure to gas pricing. That finding is not new. The warning about gas exposure has been in Irish energy policy discussions for years. The warning about infrastructure has been equally consistent. Lobbyists from across Irish industry have repeatedly told the government that Ireland needs gas storage and a liquefied natural gas terminal. The country has neither. 2 projects are under development, a storage facility being pursued by ESB, Bordgas Energy, and a company called Decarbonex, and a proposed liquefied natural gas plant at the Shannon Estuary being developed by U.S. company New Fortress. Both remain far from completion. The ship without an anchor has been taking on water for some time. The holes are documented. The warnings were filed. The decisions that would have addressed them were, at various points, deferred. The most visible symptom of that deferral arrived in Cork in early April. Farmers and hauliers blockaded the Irving Oil Whitegate refinery, a facility that processes 75,000 barrels per day, approximately 40% of Ireland's fuel needs. Access to roughly 50% of national fuel supply was cut for 4 days. Over 100 service stations ran dry. The government announced a €505 million support package on the 12th of April. Excise duty on diesel cut by 20 cents per litre, petrol by 15 cents. The measures run until the end of May. The package addressed the visible political pressure, the price at the forecourt pump. The electricity problem, larger, slower moving, and structurally deeper, received no equivalent intervention. No electricity tax cut was announced. No accelerated storage timeline. No commitment on grid infrastructure. But all of that is still the backstory. Here is what the Commission Plan and the Cyprus Summit and the forward gas price actually mean for the household that pays the bill. The Commission's recommendations for member states include cutting taxes on electricity, ideally targeted at lower income and at-risk households, coordinating the summer refill of gas storage across the bloc, introducing energy voucher schemes, banning suppliers from cutting off customers who cannot pay during the crisis period, and permitting office employers to allow at least 1 day of remote work per week to reduce commercial energy demand. These are non-binding recommendations. Ireland must decide independently whether to implement any of them. It must do so without the structural advantages of countries that have been building storage capacity, expanding their grid, and maintaining energy policy continuity over the past decade. Tomorrow and the day after, the 23rd and 24th of April, European Union leaders meet in Cyprus for an informal European Council summit. Energy will dominate the agenda. Aggressively, member states move on electricity tax relief and coordinated storage in the weeks ahead. The window between now and the May billing cycle is narrower than the reporting suggests. And in parallel, the gas market has not stopped moving. The 2-week ceasefire between the United States and Iran earlier this month produced a 15% drop in oil and natural gas commodity prices. But senior figures in the Irish energy industry, quoted this week, noted that even if peace were declared tomorrow, bills would still rise. Because the gas that flows into Irish electricity generation arrives via pipelines from Norway and Britain, and Britain draws heavily on imported liquefied natural gas during peak periods. The global gas market has repriced. That repricing does not reverse when the conflict pauses. Ireland has been in this position before, on a smaller scale. After Russia's invasion of Ukraine in 2022, European electricity prices hit record highs. They fell 65% from peak within 2 months as the market stabilized. But they did not return to pre-crisis levels. They settled higher. And Ireland, having not built storage, not crossed the renewables threshold, and not addressed the marginal pricing exposure in the intervening years, walked into the Iran crisis carrying the same structural vulnerability it had in 2022, plus the accumulated cost of 4 temporary emergency power plants, the bill for which is already flowing through network charges to Irish consumers. The ship without an anchor is now being pushed by 2 currents at once: a live global energy shock and the compounding debt of decisions that were not taken when the seas were calmer. For Irish households, the timeline is this: the forward gas price increase, 90% between December and March, has not yet appeared in retail electricity bills. When it does, the average family already paying €1,700 per year will see that baseline move. The precise scale of the increase will depend on when individual suppliers reprice their contracts, how aggressively they pass through wholesale costs, and whether the government moves to cut electricity taxes before the May or June cycle. As of the 22nd of April 2026, no such commitment has been made. The clock started today. The Cyprus Summit runs tomorrow and the day after. Watch what comes out of it. Watch whether the government signals a move on electricity taxes in the following 72 hours. And watch your next electricity bill when it arrives. It will tell you more about the decisions that were made, and the decisions that were not, than any press release issued from Leinster House or the Berlaymont building in Brussels.